ain't going back, not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide, gonna let all the fears slide. Got Mother Nature is on my side, got all of the loving.
All right, hello everyone. This has been a long time since I've done a new now direct recording for our viewers, and I am delighted to have together for the first time with myself, Howdie and Cambell. I've talked to Howdie several times. I've talked to Cambell probably about 100 times, and we've never, the three of us, done a presentation. So I figured I would hit us up with a surprise topic that seems Howdie's talked about quite a bit. I know Cambell's talked about quite a bit, and I know I have as well. So we're going to call this one Dream Shifting, the Winds of Change.
Dream Shifting, the Winds of Change.
It's been very windy here. There's been a typhoon coming through Japan. It kind of inspired me that when you want to shift your dreams, when you want to make a difference, when you want to go somewhere new, already as I started talking about it, my camera started to shift for the first time in a long time. Oh, and there it went. Interesting. Dream shifting, and my camera was hearing me. So gentlemen, let's bring Howdie in. What do you think of the topic?
Oh, I guess you're referring to altering the external, like altering the external world itself, or are you talking about altering your perception of it? Because those are two completely different things, right?
Well, let's say I'm talking about melding them into your life, shifting your dreams completely. I guess that would mean if you change the internal, perhaps the external goes with it, or so I've seen. So I'm looking at seeing a culmination of putting them both together and seeing how that might shift. Let's say you want to change your job, you want to change your health, you want to change your life, you want to change your monetary situation, you want to change your emotional balance or imbalance, whatever that might be to you. That would be how I see it.
Okay. Give me a minute to contemplate.
All right. No problem. I know we didn't talk about this beforehand. So Cambell, what do you think?
Well,
Dream shifting.
Yeah, I'm always saying for things to change, things have to change, right? So to shift what you're experiencing in reality, you need to shift what you're putting out. You need to change it, right? Let a nice cool breeze blow through you, kind of thing. And this is all to do with, the wind, I think, as well, is a good metaphor for letting go of the stuff that you're hanging on to that is keeping you where you are. Let that wind carry all the crap away and try and see things from a new perspective. Because until you can do that, until you can see something different, I don't believe you can experience. That's not actually 100% true. But most of the time, unless you can see, something different, unless you can see, imagine something new and different for your life, I don't think you can really experience something new and different as far as what you want, going forward.
All right. Have you had a chance to contemplate, Howdie?
What do you think about that, Howdie?
Yeah, I guess, in one sense, this is really moving into, again, the topic of not doing, like we had been discussing, which is when you begin to see that reality is a particular illusion in one sense that has nothing to do with us. There's a part of reality that does what it does. There's a part of reality that is responding to, us, whatever me thing is that is doing the projecting. So it's the recognition that we're always projecting the same thing. So that becomes moving into the process of not doing, which is beginning to see what reality starts to do, in a sense, if you're projecting something else. So I think before anybody could start suggesting, I want to change this, I want to change that, I think the first thing that someone has to do is say, well, what actually am I projecting? Before I can see what needs to change, it's like, well, what actually is the projection mechanism and what are the things? So you actually need to do the inventory, like we talked about before, where you actually have to get to know me first, and then you could decide. If you just try to start changing immediately, it might not have really any effect because you don't really know what you're changing.
Yeah, intent, awareness, I would agree. We go back to the recapitulation. Cambell and I have chatted about it, although he's frozen again. You and I definitely have touched base on it in pretty much every single one of the videos we've done in one way or the other. in that. Did you just change your coat there, Campbell? Is that a magic shift? Maybe not. Interesting. So when you change your, hey, Campbell. So Howdie was talking about understanding yourself or what it is that you're projecting before you can change your dream by getting a good, I would say the recapitulation, by knowing what habit you're trying to break. If it's a habit, knowing what you're trying to shift in your dream, perhaps it's getting to know the problem at its core so that you can dismantle it. Maybe that's a little bit what I would think Howdie's getting at as well. Depending, like I've heard, if you had a habit of drinking and you hang out with drunks, as an example, you start hanging out with drunks, probably you'll drink less. That's a simple example of, I guess, of knowing, wanting to change or projecting your dream. You kind of get to the core of what's causing your habit, and it allows it to shift a little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to know the problem before you can, fix it. But you have to know who you are before you can, dream or something better, right? Something different, I think. So, and that's probably a really good step that a lot of people don't really consider is, where are they and why are they there? And I guess that, to me, that was the first real realization that I am creating, my life through my thoughts and actions, and all this is through the bad stuff, right? Which most people don't want to look at. You realize that your life is crap and it's all your fault. And that tends to be a good motivation to start changing things.
Although I would disagree. I think a lot of the stuff in our life has nothing to do with us. Zero. Um, I mean, I think that's a new age hook that tries to blame. I mean, there's parts of our life that I can see does relate to what I do, but a lot of it is literally just like I said, so much of life is coming from whatever this shithole dream is, that the shithole dream is set up in a particular way to basically fuck us over and lie to us constantly. That's all it's doing. And so, because that's what we have to recognize, that's what we're actually interacting with daily. Reality is not here to make our life wonderful. For us to do anything wonderful in this is a lot of work because reality is designed to be a real mess. And so when we understand that, and this is just a thesis, it's just my opinion, then I think we have a much better chance of going forward because now we can say, well, what really are the areas of dealing with this reality that I have control over? What really are the areas that I can affect or not? And we can then use our energy really effectively. And I think that's also an important piece of the puzzle is learning not just myself. Now I've got to learn the dream. I've got to learn what the dream really is, honestly, not what I want it to be, but what it really is, because then I would understand where I can put my energy effectively and where I would be just wasting energy trying to change something that can't be changed.
Well, here's where I would take 180% different view on this topic, which is fine. I think Howdie and I have a very different perspective, on the dream. I strongly feel we make everything and everything we ask for so that we can see ourselves clearly, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrible, the bloody. And it gives us an opportunity to overcome that by accepting full responsibility. Like, I'm not responsible for someone else's actions. For that, I'll agree with Howdie. Like, if someone's doing something bad over there or someone's, pummeling a dog over there, I'm not responsible for what they're doing, but I am responsible for being in the vicinity of the experience. Like, why did I ask to be around this sort of a horrible vision that I'm seeing? Like, let's say it is something like somebody doing something not so nice, and we've all been there. And for me, I've seen it's because I've had to shift my dream by understanding how I'm being not so nice, maybe to other people, maybe to myself. Maybe something I did when I was 4 that I have to replay into my life so that I can change it now. So I'll say full responsibility for everything in the dream. And Howdie says part responsibility for certain things in the dream. It's interesting here.
Yeah, I'd be more in the middle too. Like I believe that we create our lives, obviously. Choices.
Tough topic we've chosen to chew on here. Just, it's funny in that, before Cambell comes back, like Cambell and I are doing a live event, October 6th, 7th, and 8th, Practical Evolution for Life. And we're going to be tackling topics of intuition, imagination, discipline, and power for people that are participating with us. And I feel those are the four cornerstones. And you and I have covered them in certain ways that will require people to kind of look at those four bits of their life so that they can make some practical changes for themselves by understanding who they are, why they are, where they are, and what they can do about it. You're back.
There's a storm coming over as well, so
nice.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm sort of in the middle. I believe we create our life really as far as the decisions we make, the thoughts we have, the reactions and actions, and all this kind of thing. The self-talk, the visions we see. But there's definitely a component of life that just comes out of left field, that you don't have any control of. And you hear it all the time, right? People's lives just get changed because something out of their control happens. And
yeah.
And I was going to say, you could theorize that that's choices that we make before we come down here, but we don't know that, do we? But there's definitely, I think we create, how do I say it? So I guess we create our experience going down the path, but I think there is a path. How's that?
Yeah, I hear what you're both saying very clearly. Maybe in some ways we might be arguing semantics because, I agree, I agree with Cambell that there are things that come that you had no awareness of in the past that just do show up and throw you for a loop. Yeah, what do you think about what Cambell said there, Howdie?
Well, and the question becomes, well, these things then that were not your control, let's say, that just showed up, where did they show up from? See, there's an interesting question that takes us back. Well, where did they come from? How did they get, let's say, if you consider it to be some sort of simulation or some sort of dream reality, well, where did it originate from? If it's not from me, who or what originated it? That becomes, I think, a very valuable question as well, then to ask. If you start to see that or we can do the opposite, like something really great. You could say, like, some of these people have had these wonderful coincidental moments that open some sort of wonderful doorway, and they know it had nothing to do with me personally. Who or what created the doorway? So I think that's also a valuable question to ask, is then when we find things that have nothing to do with me whatsoever, then who or what is programming that into the experience?
I would think perhaps we are, in our intent, in our subconscious, maybe. I have seen a lot of good, bad, and ugly and horrible happen, throughout my life. And I used to blame a lot of people. Like, let's say, for an example, you're having a bad experience with a friend consistently and constantly, and you don't like what they're doing. You don't like how they're treating you. You don't like what they're saying. And it's not your responsibility. But at that point, you could say to yourself, well, I'm just not going to hang out with this person anymore. I'm going to take, that energy out of my reality. And you're not creating it, but you're creating, let's say, the opposite of it, right? You're creating the absence of it by distancing yourself from that. Maybe that's a small way of looking at what you can do from the big as well. And that, you're not going to war. I would never sign up as a soldier. I've heard all kinds of horrors. I'm not going to put myself into an industry that's hurting people. Like, let's say you wanted to become a jab designer, maker, that sort of thing. I'm giving some interesting, and as much as I am a meat eater, I wouldn't want to become someone that kills animals directly either. It's not something that I feel like I would have the experience for. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that it's interesting to look at where our experiences do come from, how they show up, and what we can do about them. Maybe we can only decide how we are in the face of whatever it is that's showing up for us.
Yeah, I'd say our only choice in the.
All right. So
I'm back.
You're back.
He's back. There he is.
I was going to say the general theory is that, we choose certain things to happen so that we, learn things in this life and everything. With my life, especially in the last couple of years, I think there's definitely some predestined, part of it. That's what it feels like anyway. But this is a very hard question to ask because it's always going to be just conversation, isn't it? We're never going to be able to prove any of this, I don't think. But there's definitely a part to life that is uncontrollable by us.
So what would you say, Howdie?
I guess one of the hardest ones to even ask is, because really it's also a question of free will. That's really what's also at the base of this topic. And can you prove that anything you've ever done is of your own free will? This is a very, because even to say, well, I chose tea over coffee this morning, but that's not really free will. That, if you look closely, that will be some sort of habituated, thing from years and years of choices, of opinions, of what you like, what you don't like, what your parents did. It's this gigantic mass of information that is gone into the computer robot I call me, that has come up with a programmed idea. Like, it's almost never will somebody go, well, I have coffee or tea this morning. No, I'm going to have this thing I've never had in my life before, which would be almost like that would be seeming like free will. If you're just making a standard habitual robotic choice, that's not really free will. So once we start stepping back and asking honestly, well, how much of what I'm calling my actions are really just the programmed actions of a robot, and what is really something that has broken the mold, that is actually this thing I can say right here is truly something, I would say almost new and unique. Because as long as it's similar to something I've done in the past, then I can always just say that's just now programmed in the robot. So that would be the question is, what do we do, or what can we look into ourselves that is fully a unique expression of, whether it's what's the word I'm looking for? Not it starts creativity, like maybe something that's absolutely creative that's never come out before, something that's completely new and unique. I mean, that those are the things to me that would be the first step in saying, well, what do we have from the standpoint of free will or not?
I would agree, but wouldn't
Mm.
you think you gave yourself the habit of the coffee or the tea throughout your life? I mean, nobody forced the coffee. I mean, even if you started
I think
drinking when you were,
everything, yeah, that's the weird thing. Everything is a habit. That's what's so bizarre that we don't
Mm.
like to acknowledge. We don't like to acknowledge that everything we do is, yeah, just some habitual action. And unfortunately, then what types of things become habitual? Well, robots.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
can reprogram yourself if you want to, so to speak, or change your habits. I'm like, I've changed hundreds of habits in my life. I used to eat too
Yeah, and
much,
you'll
used to
expect you'll
drink.
get new ones. They're still not. You just change one habit to another. It's very rare somebody will be in it. I'm talking about this moment of time, which I know you've had, these moments where you literally act in a completely 180-degree way from how you would ever act or think. I mean, literally and just
Mhm.
naturally, the exact that it's like this sliver of moment where it's like, that was not me.
Mm,
And it could be, sometimes people will say that I can't believe I did that. It was so horrible. I never should have said that to you. Or it's something, the car is on the kid and the mom is able to pick the car up
mm,
off the kid and move the guy. It's this moment where you literally go absolute one way or another, really awful or really wonderful, beyond what is even possibly normal. I think those are if we can, because now it's getting back to the originating of your question, by beginning to understand these potentially very slight moments on the
mm,
edges of possibility, now this might start to help indicate, well, what is truly creating reality or changing reality, or what is just playing within a system that looks different? Like, what are the real true elements of change or uniqueness that can come in this dream?
mm,
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of change is just doing something like different, whether, and I think you could even start off just trying to do random things, even though they won't be random, right? Because they're coming from your memory. You can maybe you could build a habit of randomness or following your gut or whatever it is. Because, as I always said, we all have these events, but we've also had, experiences where we had an urge to do something and we didn't. Maybe it's getting in touch with ourselves and following those urges more, because if we look at this as like a construct, what's it called, a simulation. That, like Jason Bashir says, that when you do something different, the simulation wants to give you whatever you're after, because then it'll expend less energy on you. And if you look at it from a spiritual kind of construct, then it would be that when you do things that are different, God or whatever the oversoul is would find you more interesting, so you'd get more attention, because you're not just going around doing what everyone else is doing. So, whatever, the answer to that is, I think that just spontaneity, following your gut and doing things different is a huge, I mean, obviously, right? It is change. I mean, it's, we don't seem to think of it like that, but just doing something different is doing something different.
I mean, where would you think, Howdie, that spontaneity comes from that you mentioned? The lady lifting the car or doing something you didn't expect or something, where would you, like, if you're just, I mean, obviously you would have to be more than a programmable robot for something like that to break in, like you said.
Right.
So we're calling it a huge not doing, let's say. Okay, a break in your reality, a glitch in the system,
Right.
whatever you want to call it. Where do they come from, would you say?
Good question. I mean, I've had 3, 4, 5 of those kind of moments in my life to know that they exist. And it definitely, they did not come from me. The thing I think of as me did not in any way institute it, but at the same point, something flowed from me in the moment, or something that flowed from something I could take like as a ownership from somehow, but not me, not this thing. Like this thing had nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
So it's something that's not me, but is related to me. And it isn't necessarily doing it to improve my experience. It's just like, it's almost like something was required by something else in that moment, and I just happened to be the one that was standing there that it borrowed. That might be the best way of describing it. It's like something borrowed me for a moment and expanded something into the reality and then just left again. But it was still personal. Like it wasn't impersonal in the movement. So it's very hard to explain.
I would agree. I've seen that before. I mean, it could be one of the Toltec ways of looking at things. You and I have read the Castaneda books that warrior uses the world and doesn't mind when the world uses them. So maybe at that moment you got used for some sort of experience that was being asked for by the people around you, as in the mother lifting the car for the baby or some such bit of unusualness.
Yeah, I don't know. Campbell?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very hard to see, the construct, if you want to call it that, the realm, whatever, while we're in here, right? Clearly, we've only got a limited viewpoint because, obviously when we come in here, we've got no memories, right? We've had a memory wipe, and that the reasons for that can be debatable, but I still think that we are given, experiences to grow, and because it does tend to be that, if you keep making bad decisions, you'll keep put it in that same experience until you can learn from it, right? And then you kind of get over it. You kind of get past that bit of, so I think that it definitely, there's something, I believe there's something else out there, right? Whether it be us, whether it be God, but there's something else, some intelligence that has given us like a blueprint, given us a path to follow. And in that path, we've probably got like, levels or gateways we have to hit. But between those, we get choice, right, to sort of do what we want. But, if we go too far each way, we tend to get pulled back. And maybe that's what these big unexplained occurrences are. Maybe they're from when we wandered too far off the path, and it's like, well, here's a smack in the head. Get back where you're supposed to be. Yeah.
Maybe, did you want to say something to that, Howdie?
No, I mean, of course, people who know me would know I would have a totally different opinion of this realm. So um, there's no point going into it. They know I think differently of this place, and um, I can say that the older I get, so this is not my quote. This is a Richard Rose quote, but I come to understand it now. The older I live, the more I hate this place.
Really? It's funny. I'm finding the opposite. The more I'm here, the more I'm beginning to enjoy my life, and the stronger I'm getting, and the more alternatives I seem to have, as far as, but not just because I'm sitting on my ass and doing them, but because I'm constantly going out and breaking my own patterns and seeing what's possible for myself. And
I'm fully enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm fully enjoying my own personal awareness, but I'm realizing that this is just a giant, this is a place where everything is just suffering 24 hours a day. And just because I'm personally not in this moment doesn't mean I'm forgetting what's happening to everyone and everything else. And as like, for example, as Cambell knows, the kind of lies that we're under, oh, just gone there. The kind of lies just in history, right? Like just,
Sure.
we've both studied history for so long, and the level of deception just in history that we've all been under, like for hundreds of years, like every single thing we can see. I was just talking to Lorenzo before this, and I've got a new hockey book, Origins of Hockey book coming out in September. And Lorenzo saying, well, that kind of sounds like a goofy book to write. And I'm like, actually, no. Once I started looking into it in the 1800s, I found the whole story of hockey is a lie too. Like it's the history of everything is a lie. And so when you realize you're living in a reality where every single thing we're being presented is false, is a lie, but nothing is being given to us with any kind of truth to it, I have to start stepping back and saying, well, what a piece of crap world then. It's like somewhere somebody should be giving us something honest and true. And we're whatever honest and true we find, we have to fight for it so hard. We have to battle for every little tiny nugget of truth. And so that's why I kind of say this is just such a crappy place, because it's you shouldn't have to fight that hard for truth.
Yeah, but how do you know?
What do you mean, how do I know?
How do you know that you shouldn't have to fight that hard for truth?
Because the standard story is we are already perfect and wonderful. So if we're already perfect and wonderful, why do I need to fight for truth to be perfect? See
Yeah,
what I
but
mean? It's so it's backwards. It's the concept of it is quite backwards, as opposed to why wouldn't I just deepen my perfection?
but
Seems
that's a
weird.
but that's a good question. Why wouldn't you just deepen your perfection then, regardless of everything outside of you?
Yeah, I would love that opportunity.
Yeah, but you're alive and you're breathing. You're changing. Same as I am. I mean, I agree with you
No,
that you're not
no, I'm
changing.
not, because I know I don't exist. See, this is the other problem that comes into this whole discussion is when I know that the thing that's here, sitting here, doesn't actually exist.
Hmm.
There is no Howdy Mickoski. This is just a fake construct, and everything that's happened to him, everything he's believed, everything he's done, everything he's thought. This is just a gigantic. It's just a gigantic video game character, right? So once you've realized Zen nothingness, this becomes a very difficult place to operate in, because as long as me is still real, and as long as this me thing can still improve, can still go backwards, can still get somewhere, can still do something, can still achieve something, well, there's still a reason for operating here. Once you know you don't exist, that it's just you're just a fake character in a fake world, that's a very hard thing to start to deal with for the rest of your life. And actually, it's taken me 15 years just to get to this place where I'm not where I'm not operating like a nut, but I know I'm still not. A lot of whatever I'll say will just piss people off. It's I partially
Come on,
why I
come
stopped
on.
talking for a long time.
No, I don't mind if you say it. It's like I'm happy, like I'm delighted that you and I have very opposite perspectives on the spectrum, because
Of
you know
course.
because you and I also have come to an age in our lives where we both figured out we don't need to be right or wrong. And let's say we're old enough to be polite and respectful for other people's opinions. And I also know I don't have all the answers, right? There's no doubt in my life. I've been wrong more times than I've been right. I'll be the first to admit that. So, you know,
Exactly.
so having this conversation is allowing me even to feel my own, like some of the things you say almost brings up anger in me, right? Or almost brings up sadness in me,
Mm,
or almost brings up, like, I know I'm a man with my habit is fighting. So I'll talk about myself in the way of habit. You know, number one son, three sisters, family. I grew up as a fighter, arguing all the time. And so my habit is to want to
mm,
fight and argue and yell consistently, constantly, never ending. But I've realized that's stupid for me. It drains my energy and it never gets me anywhere. It just gets me into fights. So it's kind of a stupid programming. So I
mm,
don't do that, but I feel it, right? Like I go, oh my goodness, how do you
mm,
start? Time to start yelling, right? Time to start screaming and saying. But
mm,
I'm going, let's step back and be intelligent here. I'll do my not doing and go, well, how did you come to the conclusion, let's say,
mm.
that you're a shitty program in a shitty life. I'm paraphrasing here, but let's say, you kind of said that. I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
on, but we should let Campbell jump in so that he has a ability to,
Sure.
so we're not hogging the conversation off him.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. I mean, I didn't hear your explanation, your full explanation of why you don't think you exist. I think, I mean, what is existence? I guess I think I'm conscious, so that's got to be some kind of existence. So I think, I think I exist. But as far as everything else, I mean, you two both know I went through, something not too good. If you've frozen, I know. Something not too good about a year ago, and going through that, what it was one of the not so nice ones. I literally felt myself, going down the spiral on that, and had to catch myself. And the only takeaway so far I've got from that is I get choice to how I react to it. Things like that, destroy some people. They take people out for years. They change them, but I mean, that's all that I had really. And then I just realized that it was my choice of how to react and what am I going to do, and so what actions am I going to take, and choice.
Sometimes he comes, there he is.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, ultimately, I think we have choice, and I think that's got to, or at least to me, it proves some kind of existence. It proves that we're at least affecting this, whatever we're in, right?
Yeah. What do you mean by existence then, Howdie? How would you describe that? Or lacking thereof?
Yeah, I would agree there's an awareness, a very deep level, but awareness and this experience is not the same. It would be like somebody putting on a virtual reality headset, right? There's an awareness viewing, but everything that happens in the headset. So the character they become, the experiences that they have, the interactions that are going on, none of that is actually real. It's a virtual reality, but the awareness that's witnessing it is actually that you could say that's true. So and this is coming from my death experience. So in my death experience, when I realized the only thing that was actually true in the experience, or what I would call me, was the awareness that was observing it, the observer part of it, but everything else was just a fictional projection from that awareness, you might say, or that aware, maybe not from the awareness, but it was a projection from somewhere that the awareness was watching. And for quite a long time, I've just left myself in the observer view. I didn't need to, the character, like if the character needed to eat, it would eat. If the character needed to go for a walk, it went for a walk. But the character didn't need to do anything, but awareness needed to watch the character and watch the experiences of the character, just for the sake of observation. And we can switch this into a little different direction then, because I think the great challenge is once someone sees that, because sometimes this is called awakening, or some of these other words in Eastern religions, which get twisted around so much. And I mean, and I dug myself in a hole thinking something greater had happened than it really actually happened. But that takes us to a Castaneda discussion of then chapter 12, right, or something, of a separate reality, which is the idea of controlled folly, which is the idea of you're acting in a world that you know is not real, but you're acting in it as if it is real. That you are then a perfect actor in a world, but you're never forgetting that you're actually an actor. And it's a really important chapter that I think doesn't really get understood enough. People either try to say it's a fake world, so I don't have to do anything. I'm going to drink my tea, haha, doesn't matter. Or others are going to say, I've got to fix everything. I've got to do everything here. And here's Castaneda in this very early book kind of saying, you've got to take this completely different step between these two things and operate in a really different way to be in the world and not in the world at the same time. And I'm still trying to understand that chapter, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I'm looking up a definition of folly here, which is interesting. Lack of good sense, understanding, or foresight, an act or instance of foolishness, a costly undertaking, having an absurd or ruinous outcome. That's just off the top of what I picked up here.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't seem like it's unreal. It just seems like it's foolish. The action.
Well, that's he's meaning the action itself. So the actions which are being told that they're folly because it's an actor acting in an unreal world. It would be like some Hollywood actor thinking that the character they're playing in a movie is really them. That's the folly. So by controlling it, they're not saying I'm going to stop saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm not the actor. I'm really this actor over here and I'm leaving the set. You stay on stage, but now you are in a sense directing a bit so now I think if okay, let's twist this back. It's interesting how these conversations, this happens a lot with Cambell, right? Where we talk about something and then the thing begins to reveal. So going way back to the beginning of the changing reality, we might have the best chance of impacting the reality in a sense by realizing we're an actor in a movie and we're focused on just playing the role of the actor we've been given. That each one of us has, okay, in our cases, the actors we have slightly similar roles, okay, and therefore we can help each other, we can interact with each other because we're kind of similar what we do, but we're still, if we realize, but this is who the role I'm playing. It's not really me; it's the role I'm playing, and so my best job is to understand the role well, play the role well, but never confuse this with the true awareness of what I am.
Hmm. So do you? Because again, you said that Howdy doesn't exist. Like your consciousness and your awareness that you experience. Do you believe that's like what part of the act, or that's the observer or whatever's outside seeing through your eyes and experiencing through you, like inhabiting your, like the spirit inhabiting the body kind of thing?
Yeah, or again, I wouldn't even say it inhabits because it's not in anything. It's like literally, it's like layers upon layers back is the best way I describe it. Like if I wanted to, I could access it now. If I access it, then yeah, it's just it's like I can only, it's not truly back, but it's like not really, it's not inside anything.
It's
It's
not
like the core. It's like the core of what's here. Let's put it that way. And it's also no different from any. Like it's not my awareness. It would be yours. It would be Lorenzo's. It would be the chairs. It would be the tables. All the awarenesses are exactly the same. Just viewing from a different vantage point. It's very hard to explain.
like, yeah, yeah. So like a god, but one god sort of living, experiencing through everyone.
No, because it's not that either. It's just it's
Right?
just it's just witnessing awareness.
Just watching.
It's like and it's like really it's a really what's the word I'm looking for? It really it's not making judgments on anything. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah.
not trying to do anything, fix anything, judge anything. It's literally just it's like a camera almost. It's a pure camera of watching that is just taking in all experience, all, there's a good, it's like a giant data collection machine of everything. And it has no judgment.
Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, that's what pretty close to what I think God is anyway, right? Like I think that we're God experiencing itself, right? Like there is just one. I do believe that, and it one can't experience itself, so it fractalizes or whatever, splits itself, and then yeah, it just observes. I mean, that's interesting because obviously most religions and that say that this is like something that you can have a relationship with, but your perspective is it's just watching and collecting data. It's not really interested in a relationship. It's just interested in what's playing out in front of it and collecting data on it.
Yeah, so that's why I wouldn't even say it's me. Like when I talk about like the divine spark or the thing that is the totality of my power, the totality of the self, or whatever you want to call that, I don't even think the awareness is that. I think the awareness is like almost like you might even see awareness as the soul, and it's the thing that's allowing the divine spark to interact with this construct. It's like that, or it's the last bridge point before the even the thing that's even before that. It's just one of the tricks I think of the religious community, of spiritual community, has been to put this awareness as the end of the game. If you can reach this awareness observer, you've reached the top of the mountain. Get your lawn chair and your beer and sit there and enjoy the rest of your life because you've reached it all. And I think that's one of the final matrix that's out there is because I can sense that's still not truth. It's still not the true me. There's something even beyond that. But I've not anywhere had enough um, understanding to know what that is. I can only sense it. So it becomes so that's why these conversations become so challenging for me, because it's here I am having had those experiences and then realizing it doesn't make your life necessarily easier. It doesn't make it worse or anything, but it doesn't make it easier because it changes your whole, because everything before my death experience was about me trying to influence the world to to do what I wanted it to do. Right? I don't like certain things and I want it to be a certain way. So it's, how do I read Tony Robbins? How do I do that? How do I find ways
Mm.
to, and after my experience, it was just like, this place is going to do what it wants to do. And this was more like you and Campbell said earlier. And just, how do I just function with what the reality is doing in a way that feels comfortable for me? And that's been, I guess, if there's a learning for me, it's been that. It's been that reality is going to do what it does. And I don't have to get sucked into it in a sense. I don't have to pour my energy in dealing it with it, fixing it. I can have empathy for anything that's going on. I have more empathy now than I've ever had before. But there's also now a sense of, but I can I can detach from it as needed in order to stay clear and sane. That would be how I would describe things.
How would you describe clear and sane? So like what do you do with your clarity and your sanity if you on a daily basis? I know it's a big question, kind of hard to say, but so let's say you're more clear and sane now, and I feel the same. I'm feeling more clear and sane than I did, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I would ask another friend I know that, and he would say, anything I want, don't ask me. But
I guess it comes, I guess now it comes really, it goes energetically, it goes into my writing and it goes into what I talk about. That I don't necessarily say that much different maybe than I did 10 years ago, but that which is the energy that's behind it is very, very different.
mm,
And so I can say things that are coming, I think, from at least a more sane, clear, rooted place, so that when I talk about something of my experience, others can at least now maybe grasp it. And there's no, like you had just said, and I don't feel the need anymore that I need anyone to believe what I'm sharing. I don't need anyone to agree with me. And I'm very open to knowing, and I don't know everything. And I'm more than looking for, if I get another piece of information from somewhere, that would be great, because I love to add that to what's already here, when there were certain points of my life previously when I wanted to be really right, or I needed to be right, because if I wasn't right, then if I wasn't correct, then whatever I'm being shown as an experience might not be true. And I needed to hold the experience, as opposed to being, here's where I am, here's what I'm sharing. I don't know for sure. And I look forward to what others have to say about it. But I'm comfortable now, though, sharing my perspective honestly, and share it honestly, and not feeling like I have to say things in such a way that people will like me.
mm.
I've gotten really, really comfortable in saying things and being unliked.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. But I mean, a nice, phrase that I always think is, if you're not getting kickback, you're not speaking loud enough, right? You don't. It just means that you're not talking your truth because you're trying to please everyone. So, I mean, clearly, I think we've all sort of come to realize that, and maybe this is part of awakening, whatever it is, growing is, we're less attached to the world. We see that we're not the world, and we're not, part of this system, or at least we don't have to be. And I think that's, as you detach from, the system, the overlay, I like to call it, this program, then you become more of yourself, because what happens is you start thinking more of your own thoughts, and that's, I mean, obviously there's, the TV, right? That's been around for 20 years. Everyone's like, turn the TV off. And as soon as you do that, people change. because they've got more time to think. They're literally not being programmed. So that, I think as we detach from the world, I think that, we become more of who we are. And that, I agree with you, Howdie, that's more of an observer sort of role. It's not so, well, you're not in there physically trying to, rumble with the world and move bits of physical stuff around and make people do things and all this, because, that's futile, right? It doesn't work. You can't do that. But you can step back, do your own thing, and then people will go, oh, look at that guy doing his own thing. He looks happy. I might see what he's doing. And I think that's how we change the world or influence or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Campbell's made a really good point, is that he's talking about the more you become yourself, the more you're kind of doing what you feel you really want to do, even if others don't like it. You're kind of doing things in this reality the way you want to do them. And that kind of starts many years before that process by, he called it like detaching a bit from the system, or by, in a sense, I think moving away from how we've been told to live, how we've been told to think. And by just beginning to break some of those basic foundational structures and begin to operate differently, which will usually be very difficult at the beginning, opens the long-term doorway to start, in the way I said it, allowing the actor that wants to be here to be able to fully be in their role. But we have to step away from the role that the world is attempting to put on us, and to start saying, I don't know what my role is, but I know it's not that.
I 100% agree. I was pissed off at the world forever. Even I had a talk with my father a few days ago, and, he's old and almost gone, and he tried to put his world back on top of me again. Right? Why aren't you, married with 6 kids and 6 grandkids and doing this, the other thing, living beside me instead of, halfway around the world, and I don't know anything about your life and I don't understand it whatsoever, right? And I almost got angry because, that is my habitual mode. Instead of going, I just love you. You're not so well right now. Why don't we just, never argue anymore and learn to love each other, in the last little bits of our life, so to speak. Because taking what Howdie said and what Cambell said, I've decided I want to be a more loving being. So in that moment, I did take my step back, since we're talking about dream shifting. And instead of getting into an argument, with my father, which I would have, maybe even a few weeks ago, instead, I took the energy of his anger, which he's still angry that, being the first man in the first family, not caring, I don't have any children, carrying on the family name, etc. And I just said, I just love you. I'm going to come visit you soon. Why don't we just have a nice, time together? And then right away, he took that, as Cambell said, it influenced him. He says, of course. Of course, he still calls me by my middle name, Howie or Howard. So he goes, of course, Howie. And he's the only one who does that now, and my mother. And so, I shifted my dream in that moment by taking into account kind of all of the things we've chatted about now. In a small way, let's say.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, right? That's how we change, right? Reality, that's how we change our dream. Like your dream, one of them was to have a better relationship with your dad. So in the moment, you did something different, something that was maybe unexpected as far as your, habits and habitual motions, and you got a different result. And so you've changed the world because you've now changed your relationship. That'll, be, different every communication from now on. So I think that's, for me, that's the main thing is, I do believe that the power is with us ultimately, and it's choice, and then putting that choice into action. I don't think we can just sit there and pray for world peace. Clearly we can't do that, right? How long have we doing that for? But we have to put things into action, and that's not always going to work. And when it doesn't, that's called a mistake. So you just take 2, or you take 52, whatever. If you want to go in that direction, you just keep going. And at every point, you have the choice to give up or to keep going. And so I think, for me, it always comes back to us and what are we doing? Because I believe that we are at least affecting this reality that we're experiencing.
What do you think, Howdie?
Silence.
Not much. I'm just waiting to see what you come up with next.
Well, I do agree with what Cambell said, in that, I've strongly had from my own experiences, I've seen when I change myself, my dream does change. The silliness that Howdie talks about outside the world doesn't change. There's still people wearing masks all over the place, and there's still people doing bad things all over the place, and there's still, all of the horror of this world, which I do agree with you with, by the way, Howdy. Obviously, seeing the way people treat each other, even in an unloving fashion, and that's just a minor way of looking at what's going on, is almost untenable from a perspective of being a loving being, and watching it and seeing it. So I understand why, you're kind of, pissed off at this I guess this programming, as you say, this dream, or this reality. I heard someone said very interesting once that this particular place is the heaven of hell, which is a very interesting way of seeing this reality of what could be coming next, in that it's the heaven of hell. Well, in that, Howdy's sitting in a nice house. Let's say he's doing all right. I'm all right. Cambell looks healthy. He's got his dome up. So, in some ways we're all heavenly or heaven inspired, or, we're healthy, happy. I don't see anybody, sick as far as I see here. On the other hand, it is hell out there. No doubt about it in so many ways. And, maybe this conversation will allow this full chat of, shifting dreams, the winds of change, just when people get a chance to see three men of similar but also different perspectives.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I'm, the eternal optimist. For whatever reason, that's just how I'm wired. I really don't get negative self-talk or anything like that. And, I think what I've worked out is that, if you see the best in things, and, you can always see a better tomorrow, then life is just better. It's easier to handle than if you're running around thinking that, it's crap and it's against you and all these different things. And the other thing is, I don't take life too seriously. This isn't the be all and end all for me. This is just an experience. So I just don't take it too seriously, right? I mean, it's just life, right? It's just a dream, really. So, I think for me that's a big part of how I see life is, whatever happens, you always get the choice to, be happy
or not.
One of the people who's really kind of been a bit, I don't want to call it inspiring, but he's really changed a bit of things for me in the last few weeks is a guy named Norio Kukushi. And Norio joins me a bit on my local channel sometimes. He's also written a book on the TAT Foundation about his experience, and he's going through a very difficult life illness right now. Like he's, in real difficult pain on a daily basis. But his ability to stay centered and clear and not waver in what he's sharing is quite amazing. And I always appreciate when him and I talk, because of he's showing that in his way, even because, yeah, we're doing fine now, but like last week, injured my foot really bad. I was on crutches for a week. I got stung by an insect. My hand was like, it swelled up to double its size. So stuff is happening to everybody all the time. It's one of the weirdest things. People look at someone on a screen and they see us for an hour a day, and they make opinions on us based on the hour that they see us, like, go come to my house, for example, and see me for a day. You'll see a very different person than the 1 hour you see talking to you on the screen. There's a whole lot of different facets to the person. And this is important to share for all of you when we're watching people on screens that that you might be sort of putting a bit on a pedestal, or you're trusting that they're giving you advice for something. It's like, but you're still only I mean, this is what I like to present in the 1 hour that I'm here, but this is not what you see in the 23 hours the rest of the day, so that's also a reminder is different things change, and it's important to realize that we go through different moments, we go through different challenges. And so Norio's been really helpful for me, and because he has managed to keep his clarity, keep his awareness, keep his message, because he's in one sense clear, this is a simulation and, you know, we're trapped here. But on the other hand, you can use the simulation for your own deepening awareness and your own clarity. So it's really great that he's touching both sides of this when he speaks, and knowing the illness that he's going through right now and seeing the way that he presents himself is a real yeah, it's an inspiration whenever I talk to him.
Is he Japanese? The name sounds Japanese, Norio Kokushi, but maybe
Yeah, I think by heritage he is. Yeah, he was, his parents were in the US. They're very famous in the raw, not raw foods. What is it called? GA? That
vegan.
Norio was a part of?
Hmm.
Microbiotics, or that
Macro
Oh,
field, right? Yeah, they
macrobiotics, I
were
think it's called. Yeah.
macrobiotics. Yeah, they were some of the originators of that. And then he later on wound up having an experience where he saw through the self, and has been sharing about it since. And then, yeah, I've been going through this, his own personal experience. And yeah, so we've had some wonderful conversations together. And it's also valuable, like, again, for someone, at least I can say this for myself, to have conversations and listen to conversations with others who maybe see things slightly similarly, but are seeing things from a little bit different angle, and are showing, in his case, yeah, like I say, great courage and great awareness, even in the face of difficulty on a day-to-day basis. So it's, yeah, stuff like that sometimes is great to have the ability to discuss with someone like that.
it's interesting too, isn't it, that the more hardship people go through,
Yes. The more challenges they go through, kind of left hanging on an interesting point. I guess maybe the viewers could fill in their own bit before Cambell comes back. You know, the more challenges you go through, what would you say? You know, I like this. Howdie said something great in that it's just a conversation. It's just three men. We're just sharing our experiences. We're just chatting with what brought us to where we are. We've just decided to have some videos together. And we were saying, Cambell, the harder the experiences,
the more inspirational the people tend to be. You know, if they, so yeah. So the greater the hardship, the more inspiring the person if they get through that hardship. Which, when you think about it, could be one of the reasons for hardship, right? For all this crap, to learn, grow, and inspire others. I mean, when it's easy, it's not very inspiring, is it? If someone's like, "Oh, look at me, I'm rich. My dad did it all and gave me the money. Woohoo!" You're like, "Well, you're an idiot." Like, but if they're like, you know, if they've come up and got over all these obstacles and kept going, and they've got to a place where they're happy, then that's where we tend to learn the most, I think.
the hardest parts of my life have made me the better person. I can say for myself, no doubt.
Forged in fire, man.
I would agree. I've heard God. They say, "What is God? God's weapons are forged in fire. You know, edged in hardship."
Yes,
They're the opportunity. Yeah, they're the opportunity for us, and it's what does somebody do with them?
Yes, of course.
exactly, yeah, and that's the difference. I think, you know, two people can have the same experience. It's like that story with, you know, the two sons, and their dad got, you know, he was a jailbird, and they interviewed the two sons, and one was a successful lawyer and one was in jail, and they went to the first one in jail and said, "How did you end up like this?" And he said, "Well, with a dad like mine, how could I be anything else?" And they went to the lawyer and said, "How did you end up like this?" And he said, "Well, with a dad like mine, how could I be anything else?" You know, so it's just how.
But then of course there's the people who've gone through the lives of horror, and there are lots out there who've gone through that are literally pretty much just living with post-traumatic stress disorder for the rest of their life. And it doesn't really matter what they do, they're going to be dealing with it forever because of what they've dealt with.
Yeah.
And so it's we tend to try to forget that part of the experience of, like, when we think, oh, someone's gone through hardship or difficulty, we package it in a kind of thing it's manageable. It's, you know, as opposed to, yeah, the one that's just gone through horror, you know, that's a much more difficult challenge. And you'd have to say, well, why would somebody say this is a good thing for a 6-year-old child to go through, as opposed to just a difficult, like, I mean, I can say I've had trauma in my life, but still, in the level of trauma, it's like 3 out of 10 compared to what the rest. And great, that trauma was helpful for me. I took advantage of it. I could see that there are, from the many people I've talked to over the years, there are probably certain levels of trauma that almost are undealable with, that you would have almost a difficulty even just surviving beyond that in this reality. And I think when people ask, how did you come to the kind of viewpoint you have now? That's been a big part of it, was the number of people I talked to over the years who shared me their honest, true experiences they had to go through. They were there looking for help and looking for, advice. And when I had to start seeing, holy fuck, this is the kind of stuff that the people are going through in this world.
Sure.
Something's just so wrong with this place, because we tend to not notice that kind of stuff unless you're in very unique, like maybe if you are a trauma counselor, like maybe if you work in a surgery, maybe if there's very few places where the average one of us could really come across the really horror side of the reality. We're still pretty, so it's so, I'm just bringing that up because somebody might be watching who comes from that, or has a family member who comes from that level of difficulty. To me, that would be the similar somebody who's been in a cult for 20 years. The deprogramming of the cult person to actually even attempt to bring them into regular functioning society is that's like a 5 or 10 year process. And so depending also on the level of the trauma, you might be looking at a multi-year process of just be able to get in the place, to then be able to do it like Cambell and Lorenzo and I are saying, where now you can use the difficulty to begin and actually make changes and grow. I mean, literally, you have to actually have a process period first for all of it to integrate and deal with it. Then you know what I mean? Like depending on it, you have to be honest again with yourself of where are you really and what are the steps that are required for what you have honestly gone through. Sorry, I just
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to
no,
share
I
that in case
agree.
there's a
Like,
viewer out there watching who's
yeah,
in that place.
yeah, and I've heard some of the stories too. We all know, what goes on. Yeah, so I mean, I can't really, yeah, I can't speak on that because I haven't experienced. It's not,
Yeah.
but we've all had to grow, change a bit to get to a place where we can change our perspective anyway. So, no matter who it is, something has to change. Again, right? Things have to change for things to change, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And of course, partially, oh, sorry, but partially, I mean, just by having the experience shared with me, and because of the empathy level I had at the time, it's like I experienced part of their experience.
mm,
So it wasn't like I was like separate from them in the experience. I was partially getting some of these experiences, and that is also for me was part of the learning of this reality. Was what was shared with me became, you might say, part of my own experience, even though I didn't experience it directly. And it really did begin this underlying process for a number of years of asking some really deep questions that I never asked before having these things shared with me. So there's yeah, like I say, somebody doesn't necessarily have to go through the trauma themselves, but your brother does, or you just had, it's like it's in your immediate environment that
yeah,
you can still also, it's not yours, but you can still tap into something deeper yourself and maybe grow with it, and maybe you're assisting the other person at the same time. That's, but you're also taking, that's a story of the Buddha, right? The Buddha didn't have the traumatic experiences in the stories,
yeah,
but when the Buddha went out and saw the stuff around them, that's when the Buddha said, okay, I'm done with this princely life and I'm going to try to figure out this world. So it wasn't trauma to the Buddha, it was the Buddha viewing the trauma around him. And I think it can still be used that way if we're open and aware to challenges and difficulties in that's around us. We don't have to say, "Oh, I want to grow. Please give me trauma." There's enough trauma around. Just make
Mhm.
yourself available to helping others who've gone through trauma, and you'd be doing a service to the people who've had it, and you'd still be getting the opportunity for your own. Maybe that's even the best, if you can ask for it, that's the best way to ask for it. How can I become a helper to those who had trauma? And you're getting the best of both worlds.
For sure. I don't think there's any shortage of trauma in this dream. That's for sure.
No.
You know, like you said, the insect gotcha. You know, I've had all kinds of strange experiences even over the last few days, and you know, Campbell's had some of the traumas of his experiences he shared over the last couple of years, and but you know, we all seem like we're well-adjusted, better men for the challenges. If I may be so bold as to make that statement for all three of us.
Yeah, I wouldn't go backwards. Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, and I think we've all, in our own way, looked for something deeper than how, like, like Campbell just said, the person I was 30 years ago might have been more interesting. The average person might have wanted to spend more time with that guy, but I like spending time with this guy.
Yeah, I find that too. The more I like myself, the less friends I seem to have, but that's all right.
Well, luckily, the less you need, right?
And then the less I need. It's true. I think the more honest you are, the more ruthless you become, the more sharp you become. You do have less people that want to hang out with you, but you know, that could be a conversation for another, you know,
Yeah,
maybe they're just looking to you know, not feel, as Howdie said, the trauma, like trauma by osmosis, because you've been through trauma. I've been through trauma. I know Camel's been through trauma. And so maybe people hanging out with us feel that sharp, you know, the sharpness is castaneda's at your edge, right? Of having lived through some of the horrible things. And of course, you're not so comfortable to be around anymore because you're not just saying, well, let's have a beer and forget it, right? It's just not your modus operandi or operandi. It's just not the way you are anymore. You're more like,
Yeah.
crazy world. Let's see what we can do.
So if I can just ask you guys before we go, because I know you got this big thing you were talking about coming up in October. Are you looking forward to it? Are you getting ready? Have you put getting your plans done for it? Because it's like a month and a half. It's close, right? So I'm just curious how you guys are. Not that I'm trying to promote them or anything. I'm actually honestly curious.
No. Cambell and I are, you know, we were getting it together. We talked about it. It came out of nowhere. I let Cambell talk, but yeah, we decided even a few days ago because we were going, you know, we want to put it together. We want to make it real. We want to decide in our life, you know, October 6th, 7th, and 8th, Port St. Lucie, Florida. And ever since we decided a few days ago that we're getting on the ball, we're doing it, we're putting it together, more people have been interested, more people have decided to join us. You know, I'm getting emails about it every day, whereas before it was very occasional. And, you know, I'm a bit nervous, I have to be honest, you know, because we're going to be sharing with people for 3 straight days, 9 to 5, someone asked us. But this is one of the ways I'm getting ready, by the way, because all the videos I'm doing are literally related to dream shifting, facing yourself, intuition, imagination, you know, discipline and power. And pretty much, you know, I don't want to, I'll let Cambell talk in a second, but pretty much what I've come up is what Howdie's come up with is that I'm not trying to change anyone. That's a big one for me. You know, I don't want to go in and say, everyone's got to listen to me. Everyone's got to do what I'm doing. And if you change, you'll have a great life. It's like, you know, I know that's not true. I'm just going to share what's worked for me, how I've gotten to where I've gotten. Cambell will share as he feels like. And we are, well, I'm hoping at least that people can pick up some intelligence from that, because I know Cambell and I have both altered our lives for the better. And I feel we can share that very well now. What do you think, Cambell?
yeah. I mean, like you said, we've sort of approached this, you know, looking for signs, taking actions, and see what happens, and it's all come together organically. Recently, you know, Lorenzo sort of stepped out and took a big step out on faith, and like you said, instantly, you know, the whatever you want to call it, the realm responded, right? Because what we're doing is we're cementing our intention. We're saying, no, this is going to happen. And so as you do that, I think you get more of a response and things start to move. And so you've got to step out on faith to do that. So that's how it's come about, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And, you know, to me, it's all about getting better questions, right? Asking yourself better questions, getting different perspectives is always good. But yeah, 3 days, you know, Q&A type sort of format, small in Florida, sorry.
Yeah, Port St. Lucie, Florida. Between Orlando and West Palm, kind of somewhere in the middle there, I've been told.
It's going to be really good, yeah. Like, yeah, we've got other people started to talk to us, other sort of YouTube personalities, you know, we've had a bit of interest. So we're just going to see where it takes us, but it's going to be awesome. And yeah, we've made the steps, so it's happening.
Yeah. The land was gifted to us, Howdie, pretty much 48 beautiful acres. He retired, you know, he's got a fruit forest and a beautiful, it's the kind of place you couldn't pay for or imagine you would get the opportunity to do an event for. It's like set up basically with 50 people to talk, and a pool and a pond, and it's a cultured area. And it's, you know, October, I've heard, is beautiful weather. in Florida as well. So
Mhm.
again, we took a leap on faith. I said to Campbell one day, why don't we do a live event? He said, sounds good. You know, because I think we're both optimists, which is probably why we kind of get along. And suddenly it's all been falling into place.
Exactly. Link below, guys. Come and join us.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I hope you'll do a nice update when it's over and you guys can have a share how it went with everybody.
Yeah, my wife's going to film it. We're going to do a promotion after the fact as well. And Howdie, I just have to say, because maybe people are as curious as I am, how in heaven's name did you come up with that new book that you're working on? You know, I love hockey, and you know, you've looked at the history of hockey. Hockey's Hidden Mask. Did you say it was called?
It's called Hockey's Origin Unmasked.
Hockey's Origin Unmasked. So, how did you come up, or how did that come up to you? What brought you to that topic as a book, which to me seems very, you know, breaking the patterns and out of left field, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I was a hockey historian for a long time. So, and my first book was actually a hockey history book. And
Wow.
after things got a bit challenging with the Exit the Cave material and things on YouTube are getting a bit kind of difficult, I just decided, because I'm a writer, so it's like, okay, I should go back and finally write a hockey book again. I've always wanted to write one, and okay. And I thought this would be a nice break, something completely different from what I'm doing. But once I started the research of digging into the story of 1880s hockey, it was like, holy crap, this is a lie too. And then when you start pulling up then you pull in baseball, then you pull in football, then you pull in golf, then you pull in soccer, then you pull in basketball, you're right. Every single origin story of every sport we know of is a gigantic misdirection, a gigantic lie. There's a totally different, and again, I'm not giving answers. I'm just showing, hey, all of this is just so coincidentally stupid. Something else is going on. So all of a sudden it became like I started what I thought was a simple project has become another giant historical landmine. And so it'll be interesting for me because it's going to be a chance to not just talk to our normal community who already kind of knows history's a lie. I'm going to maybe be able to break into a little bit into the standard, regular interested people who then might read this book and go, that's kind of different. I'm going to look into this expositions, mud flood, Tartaria ideas. I'm going to look into some of this other stuff and see and they might move themselves into some other study that they never did before. So I'm now seeing it as a bit like a door opener potentially for more average people to maybe want to ask questions about their history that they never asked before. That's kind of how it's all turned out. It's been very surprising.
Well, for one, I'm looking forward to reading it. I've been a big hockey fan since I've been a little boy. So I would, you know, being raised in Toronto, and I used to go with my father to the Leafs pretty much every couple of weeks for sure. He had seasons tickets with his company, so I would love. I was very lucky behind the opposition's net, 4 rows up. I still remember, you know, as a little boy, I was very, very lucky getting to.
I'll tell you what. When we're done this, I'll send you chapter 1. You can take a look at it and see what you think.
I would love to read it. All right. Well, this has been a great chat. Thank you, Cambell, for joining us. Thank you, Howdie, as well. It went in ways I didn't imagine, which is why I love them. We will leave the links below to Howdie's channel, which I'm sure he'll give you updates on his website for when his book is out and all of the other lovely things he's written. I'll leave a link to Cambell's channel, of course. We have a course, Freedom's Calling You to Life's Lost Purpose. As Howdie mentioned, our event, Practical Evolution for Life. And we hope you've got something practically useful out of this conversation.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Cambell. Thanks, Howdie. See you guys again. I appreciate it. Bye for now, everyone.
Can't make me lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom first is what I say.